Hey guys, off the mic Sports Network here. An interesting element in March Madness where there was a lot of coaching movement last year. And three jobs in particular were affected: BYU, Arkansas, and Kentucky. And those three jobs that have now all of a sudden been set up, all three of those schools have made it to the Sweet 16. So it's one of the rare cases of a win win win. We're not going to talk about USC and SMU, who were impacted by this as well. But stay with me, guys, here for you while I explain this. So, obviously, one of the biggest coaching moves of the past offseason in college basketball was John Calipari leaving Kentucky to go to Arkansas. This was after Arkansas's job came open. Eric Musselman, who had been there for a long time, he goes to USC. USC didn't have a great season. He ended up replacing Andy Enfield, who went to SMU. So those are the two schools out of this that did not benefit from it. But John Calipari, he ends up going to Fayetteville to take over the Razorbacks. He's in the Sweet 16. John Calipari had a really tumultuous end to his time in Lexington, but great coach. As a result of this, Mark Pope, who was a national champion playing under Rick Pitino in the 90s, he was the head coach at BYU. He jumps and goes to his alma mater, and he takes over the Kentucky Wildcats job. Mark Pope has got the Wildcats in the Sweet 16. So there's that. Then BYU is left after Mark Pope goes to Kentucky, and BYU gets NBA longtime assistant with the Phoenix Suns, Kevin Young, to come from Phoenix and take a jump and go to a college job. He hadn't coached in college. So he jumps from the NBA, goes to college, coaches at BYU. They have a ton of NIL money. I think they got the number one recruit coming in next year. They've got a great set of veteran guys over there in Provo. And he gets them to the Sweet 16 after they beat the number 3 seed Wisconsin. And BYU hadn't been there since the days of Jimmer for Dead. Like Jimmer for Dead could just shoot it from 30. And this was like 15 years ago when I was like a teenager. And this was my growing up youthful years of watching March Madness. But anyway, so BYU, Kentucky, and Arkansas all were a result of this domino effect. We'll leave out USC. We'll leave out SMU because Andy Enfield left USC to go to SMU. And then obviously Eric Musselman left Arkansas to come to USC, come back to Southern California where he has a lot of roots. So those two schools didn't even make the tournament this year, but great coaches going there. But three coaches in this domino effect that happened in the last cycle, three of them are coaching potentially for a national championship. And, Mark Pope's got a really good team over there at Kentucky. Like John Calipari, kind of like, it was kind of an up and down season. They're at 10 seed, but they're still here. And then, BYU, guys, BYU is going to be a problem moving forward because Kevin Young's already got this thing rolling in year one. He's got an NBA mindset there. I think the kid's name's AJ DeBansa. Number one recruit is coming to BYU next year, and he might be the number one pick in 2026. Like BYU is going to be a problem. They get up and down the floor. They score a bunch of points. It's going to be a lot of fun. So three schools, the rare case where you see coaching movement across all of first of all, it's all a domino effect where multiple people of these guys are impacting other jobs. And then all of them end up winning. And all of them end up being in high-profile situations and are now one of the last 16 teams left coaching and playing for a national championship in college basketball. Like it's a really underrated story in college basketball that some of the most highest profile changes, because Arkansas basketball is a high-profile job. Obviously, Kentucky is one of the most demanding and one of the most high profile jobs in the sport as well. And then BYU, let's call it what it is. BYU athletics, that's an institution. It's hard to win there. But they have a great fan base. They have a great alumni base. And, for an NBA guy, a lifelong NBA guy like Kevin Young to go there and coach this team to the Sweet 16, and for crying out, guys, I'm calling it I've already done somewhat and I'll probably do maybe a more in-depth preview of the Sweet 16 later. But BYU Alabama might be the first team to 100. That might play like an NBA game because those teams don't play a lot of defense. They shoot a ton of threes. They get up and down the floor. That is going to be a fun ass game to watch. So it's just, like I said, great for all these programs. I have faith in Eric Musselman at USC that it'll work out. Andy Anfield's a fantastic coach at SMU. They won a ton of games at SMU. They just played in a down ACC and just couldn't get enough reason for the committee to put them in. And so, like I said, a bunch of coaches switching places, but really what this is about is the three jobs that were really directly impacted by, like, obviously John Calipari being the high profile name, moving from SEC school to SEC school. Then the guy who replaces him ends up taking his alma mater, the Sweet 16. And then obviously Kevin Young being the one to take over at BYU. And he has BYU in a place they haven't been in over a decade. So it's really an awesome story. Like I said, this is an awesome Sweet 16. I can't wait to see it next week. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.